Good old fungi. They're among the most diverse and unusual life forms on the planet, but some species are so strange in appearance that they really don't seem real. So, here's 15 of the most alien-looking fungi plants in the world. Starting with number 15, the electric orange eyelash cup. Octospora humosa, commonly referred to as the eyelash cup fungus, is a tiny but visually stunning species of fungus that looks like it belongs more on an alien coral reef than on a temperate forest floor. Its most distinctive feature, those bright orange cups fringed with black hair-like projections, makes it one of the coolest fungi ever observed despite the small size. What it lacks in mass, it makes up for in the vivid color, texture, and form. It resembles a microscopic sea anemone or even an artificial bioengineered organism. As with other cup fungi, this one produces its spores in an open cup-like structure rather than under a cap or within pores. Each cup typically measures only about 2 to 5 millimeters across, but they happen in clusters, which can make their presence more noticeable when scattered over the mossy patches of soil they like. The species is native to Europe, and it's also been documented in North America, particularly in damp, shaded forest environments where moss plants are abundant. While not parasitic, this one's considered moss-associated, meaning it only fruits in close connection with live moss tissues. Now, this makes it an indicator species for healthy, undisturbed moss ecosystems, as an important layer in forest biodiversity. Now visually, it presents as a vibrant orange disc, sometimes nearly neon in their intensity, with a perfect circular shape and a smooth, shiny interior surface. The margin of each cup is fringed with black, stiff hairs that curve outward slightly. These eyelashes are what gives the fungus its common name and are thought to play a role in protecting the spore-producing surface. From above, a patch looks like a little miniature field of orange eyes rimmed in black peering up from the moss. Under the microscope, the hairs of the edge of the cup are even more bizarre, dark, multi-segmented, and bristle-like. They resemble stiff antennae more than anything organic. This microscopic detail enhances their reputation as one of the most alien-looking in the world. Mycologists have speculated that the hairs also might serve a mechanical role in distributing airflow near the spore surface, helping the tiny spores to be carried farther by the wind. So from an ecological standpoint, it's pretty harmless, and it plays a minor but specific role in nutrient cycling. It doesn't decay wood or leaf litter directly, nor does it act as a plant symbiont like a mycorrhizal fungi. Instead, it forms a specialized niche with mosses, growing in moist, shaded microhabitats. But its preference for moss makes it sensitive to habitat disruption, and it tends to disappear in areas with heavy foot traffic and deforestation. Although small and not edible, it's increasingly popular among macro photographers and fungal enthusiasts due to that dazzling coloration and the perfect radial symmetry. When captured up close with proper lighting, this fungi looks artificial, like it's sculpted orange dishes that were adorned with black spines. Some images are so surreal that casual viewers often assume they've been digitally enhanced or rendered. And there is no known toxicity associated with it, but its size and growth habits means that it has no culinary or medical uses. Despite being one of the smaller species on this list, it ranks among the most visually arresting. That combination of brilliant orange, the coloration, the radial precision, and the black-fringed eyelashes makes it look like a living alien sensor or a microscopic organism from an underground world. Its discovery in a natural setting almost always causes a pause. Even seasoned mycologists take some time to appreciate its form. And while some fungi shock with size or grotesque structures, this one astonishes with its elegance, its subtlety, and an unmistakably unearthly visual aesthetic. It's like a little tiny ambassador of how strange and beautiful life on Earth can be, especially when you're looking closely. Number 14. Bioluminescent Mushrooms. One of the most ethereal and alien-looking fungi on Earth is Mycena chlorophyos, a species best known for its ability to glow in the dark. This small, delicate mushroom emits a soft greenish light from its cap and its gills, making it appear otherworldly in the humid forests it calls home. Native to subtropical and tropical regions like Japan, Taiwan, Indonesia, Brazil, and certain Pacific islands, this bioluminescent species is rare and highly sensitive to environmental conditions. Now, the mushrooms themselves are pretty small. They typically measure between 1 to 3 centimeters in diameter. Their caps are pale to translucent white with faint striations and a smooth texture. The stems are slender and fragile, giving the entire mushroom a ghostly appearance even in daylight. But it's at night that they reveal their most remarkable feature, a faint but unmistakable glow produced by a biochemical reaction similar to that seen in fireflies and some marine organisms. The glow results from the interaction of a compound called luciferin with the enzyme luciferase in the presence of oxygen. In this fungi, the reaction is continuous and it only happens mainly in the gills beneath the cap. The emitted light has a peak wavelength of about 520 nanometers. That's right in the green portion of the visible spectrum, which is effective in dark forest environments. This glow may serve to attract insects maybe, or other small arthropods that help disperse the mushroom's spores, although the function is still a subject of research. Unlike many bioluminescent fungi, though, which glow faintly or sporadically, this one is well known for producing a consistent and visible light under the right conditions. However, the window for viewing them is pretty narrow. The mushrooms only glow for a few days after fruiting, and they require specific humidity and temperature ranges to even survive. They emerge after heavy rains and in decaying wood or leaf litter, particularly in shaded and undisturbed forest habitats. In Japan, these mushrooms are known as hatonohi, or pigeon fire, and they've been part of local folklore for centuries. They are now, though, a point of conservation interest and even ecotourism. In places like Yukushima Island, tourists and researchers venture into forests at night to witness the natural bioluminescent display, a glowing colony of mushrooms illuminating the forest floor like something from a science fiction movie. Microscopically, they've been known for growing on decaying wood and organic matter. Its spores are white and smooth, and its hyphae are often packed with fluid-filled cells that contribute to that slightly translucent appearance. Though visually stunning, it isn't considered edible or medicinal, but the small size and fragile nature make it unsuitable for most forms of human use. Instead, its primary value lies in its role in ecosystem nutrient cycling and its contribution to fungal biodiversity. That rarity and fragility of this species has also prompted conservation efforts. In Taiwan and Japan, where forest development and climate change have impacted mushroom habitats, efforts are underway to catalog and protect known colonies. Laboratory cultivation is extremely difficult, though some success has been achieved in recreating this glowing effect in controlled environments, and it's for scientific study mostly. Number 13. The bleeding tooth fungus. That is a good name. It's Hygnellum pecki, widely known as the bleeding tooth fungus. It's a bizarre and haunting species that really challenges nearly every visual expectation of what a fungus should look like. This toothy, white to beige fruiting body that appears to ooze bright red fluid has earned it the common names such as strawberries and cream, devil's tooth, and more ominously, bleeding fungus. Well, it's native to North America and parts of Europe, particularly in coniferous forests with acidic soils. The most striking feature of it, though, is that red fluid that appears to seep from the surface of the fruiting body. This phenomenon is the result of a process known as guttation, in which excess moisture is excreted through specialized pores. Now, the red coloration comes from a pigment that's also known to have anticoagulant properties. In younger specimens, the exuded droplets are glossy and blood-like, standing out starkly against the pale white or tan background. As the fungus ages, the fruiting body darkens and the droplets dry, leaving behind these crusty reddish stains. Though it looks toxic and its appearance might suggest danger, the bleeding tooth fungus is not poisonous. It is, however, inedible due to its extremely bitter taste and tough, woody texture. It belongs to a group of fungi known as tooth fungi or hygnoid fungi. They have a spore-producing structure on the undersides of their caps in the form of downward-pointing spines rather than gills or pores. It forms mycorrhizal relationships with coniferous trees like pine and spruce, and that symbiotic association does benefit both organisms. The fungus helps the tree absorb water and nutrients, especially phosphorus, and the tree provides the fungus with sugars produced through photosynthesis. This type of mutualism plays a role in the forest ecology here, especially in nutrient-poor soils. But despite the alien appearance, the bleeding tooth fungus is often difficult to even spot in the wild. It grows in mossy or needle-covered forest floors, and it blends in once the bright droplets fade. The distribution of it includes the temperate forests in the Pacific Northwest, parts of northern and central Europe, and recently isolated sightings in Iran and South Korea. Number 12. Starfish Fungus. The Azororubra, or starfish fungus, is a bizarre and striking fungus that resembles a bright red sea creature emerging from the forest floor. It's native to Australia and New Zealand. This down-under fungus has spread to other parts of the world, including South Africa and some Pacific islands. The unsettling appearance, though, the brightly colored with tentacle-like arms coated in foul-smelling slime, makes it one of the most alien-looking fungi known to science. Like other members of the Stagghorn family, this one begins its life as a round, gelatinous, egg-like structure. This egg breaks open to reveal a red to pink star-shaped fruiting body with 6 to 10 arms that radiate outward. The interior surfaces of these arms are coated with a brownish-green slime known as gleba, which contains the spores and emits a powerful odor of decaying flesh. Now, that odor is not incidental. It plays a key role in the fungus's reproductive strategy. That smell attracts flies and other carrion feeders that land on the gleba, collect spores on their bodies, and then fly off to disperse them. This insect-mediated spore distribution system allows it to propagate in the nutrient-rich soils of gardens, woodlands, and even coastal environments. But what sets it apart from other stinkhorns is the vivid coloration and that symmetrical shape. The red arms often curl upwards at the tips, giving it a starfish or octopus-like appearance that almost is mechanical in its precision. The contrast between the red flesh and that dark spore slime enhances that alien aesthetic, and it makes it a favorite among photographers and naturalists fascinated by unusual fungi. Despite the grotesque smell, it's not harmful to humans or animals, and it's technically edible when young, before the egg opens, but the overwhelming odor and unappealing texture make it inedible in practice. In fact, most field guides recommend avoiding all stinkhorns for consumption, unless specifically familiar with that early developmental stage. It thrives in organic-rich soils, and it's often found growing in mulch, compost, or rotting wood. It appears after periods of rain, really in the late summer and fall, and it's common in suburban areas where wood chips or garden compost provide suitable conditions. It's part of a broader family of gasteroid fungi. That means its spores are not forcibly discharged, but they rely on external agents like insects for dispersal. This does contrast with gilled mushrooms or puffballs, which release spores into the air. The evolution of these odor-based dispersal systems in stinkhorns is a fascinating example of what's known as convergent evolution, showing how even fungi have adapted complex ecological strategies for reproduction. Number 11. The parasitic puppet master. Oh boy, this one. Few fungi evoke more curiosity and unease than the Cordyceps militaris. It's a bright orange, club-shaped fungus that parasitizes insects and ultimately erupts from their bodies like something from a science fiction movie. Though not as well known as its relative Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, Cordyceps militaris is widespread, visually distinct, and among the most studied parasitic fungi in the world due to that vivid appearance, complex life cycle, and its use in traditional medicine. Native to Asia, Europe, and North America, this one grows primarily on the pupae or larvae of moths and butterflies. That alien reputation comes from what it does to its hosts. After spores infect an insect, the fungus grows internally, consuming the host's body from the inside while avoiding any vital organs for as long as possible to keep the insect alive. Once the insect dies, often mummified and buried slightly beneath the forest floor, the fungus produces a bright orange to reddish fruiting body that emerged directly from the insect's carcass. These fruiting bodies resemble tiny flames or elongated clubs, ranging from 1 to 5 centimeters in height. In healthy clusters, they look almost artificial due to that saturated color and the upright shape. Often, they protrude from the soil like miniature alien plants, and the outer surface of the fruiting body is covered in tiny parathecia, that's small flask-shaped structures that release spores into the environment for the next generation of infection. The biology behind this fungal life cycle is pretty complex. The spores are thought to adhere to or be ingested by the insect hosts, and once inside, the fungus transitions into a vegetative state, spreading throughout the whole body while carefully avoiding any immune detection. When the host is near death, the fungus manipulates its tissues to anchor it into position, sometimes even causing it to move to a favorable environment before dying. Then the fruiting bodies grow through the exoskeleton, seeking light and airflow to release the spores. This dramatic behavior has made it the subject of countless documentaries, horror fiction, and even video games. Now, while it typically targets moth larvae rather than ants, its visually theatrical fruiting process and the concept of parasitic control remains the same. But beyond the alien-like reproductive strategy, it is notable for those bioactive compounds. It contains cordycepin and adenosine, molecules that have shown antiviral, immunomodulatory, and antioxidant properties. In traditional Chinese medicine, it is used to boost energy, support respiratory function, and enhance your overall vitality. From a taxonomy perspective, though, the fruiting bodies are relatively short-lived in the wild, appearing in late summer through autumn, and they're often in shaded woodland environments with rich insect populations. Yummy, yummy. Not a fan of that one. Number 10. Purple Jelly Disc Fungus. So at first glance, Ascocorine sarcoides looks more like a melted alien organism than a terrestrial fungus. This gelatinous purple to pink fungus often appears in irregular, brain-like clusters that grow directly on dead wood, especially on the decaying trunks and branches of hardwood trees. It is known as the purple jelly disc or the purple brain fungus, and it's widespread in temperate forests across North America, Europe, and parts of Asia. The fruiting body of it forms lumpy, hemispherical lobes that resemble jelly or partially melted silicone. Now, these lobes typically range from about 1 to 4 centimeters across, and they're grouped in loose clusters. Their texture is soft, gelatinous, and moist, especially after rain, giving them an almost biological look, like a soft coral or a piece of lab-grown tissue. This coloration adds to the alien impression, though. That translucent purple hue is uncommon in fungi, and it's quite striking when seen in contrast to the dull browns of rotting wood. But what makes it really fascinating beyond its appearance is the biochemical profile of it. It produces volatile organic compounds, specifically a group of chemicals called mycodiesel that are being researched for their potential as biofuels. These compounds are similar in structure to hydrocarbons found in diesel fuel, prompting interest from energy researchers. This species is saprophytic. That means it feeds on dead organic matter, particularly decomposing hardwoods like maple, beech, and oak, and it plays an important role in nutrient cycling, breaking down the lignin and cellulose in wood and contribute to soil health. It does often appear during autumn and early winter when the air is moist and the temperatures are cool. I guess it's perfect conditions for jelly-like fungi. It reproduces both sexually and asexually. In its sexual form, it produces the jelly-like purple discs that are most commonly seen and photographed. In its asexual phase, though, it appears as darkly pigmented, fuzzy molds on the surface of wood. Both forms are involved in decomposition, and both are integral to the fungus's spread through the ecosystem. Though not considered toxic, this fungus isn't edible due to its gelatinous texture and lack of culinary value. Unlike similar-looking fungi like wood ear mushrooms, it does lack the resilience and mild flavor needed for any cooking. Field guides often caution against confusing it with a closely related species that grows in similar habitats, but it's got subtle structural differences observable under a microscope. From a visual standpoint, it does appear as if it shouldn't belong in a forest at all. Its rubbery, growing lavender clusters seem more suited to the surface of an alien moon. In mass, the fungus looks like a smear of melted candy or alien tissue, and it gives it a unique aesthetic among woodland fungi. Number 9. False Morel. Gyromitra esculenta, commonly known as the false morel, is a fungus whose grotesque, convoluted structure easily earns it a place among the most alien-looking fungi. With its wrinkled, brain-like cap and unpredictable form, this one has long confused mushroom foragers and unnerved casual observers. Though it superficially resembles the prized edible morel, its appearance and chemistry and behavior are anything but ordinary. This fungus typically grows in sandy soils or coniferous forests throughout Europe and North America, and it fruits in the spring and early summer, often emerging after snowmelt when the ground is moist but the weather is warming. The fruiting body can reach up to 10 centimeters tall and features a reddish-brown to dark brown lobed cap that is highly irregular, folded, and often described as looking like a brain or spilled intestines. Its stem is thick, yellow to whitish, and somewhat brittle when handled. The bizarre form of it isn't just cosmetic either. It does result from irregular folding of the spore-producing tissue that creates a complex surface area that increases spore dispersal. Unlike gilled mushrooms, which have defined undersides for the spore production, the folds of this one serve as the primary site for spore release, and air currents play a critical role in carrying spores away. However, what makes this fungus particularly notable and dangerous is the toxicity of it. It contains a compound that metabolizes into monomethylhydrazine, that's MMH, in the human body. It's a highly toxic chemical and also used as a rocket propellant. Ingestion of raw or improperly prepared specimens can lead to symptoms ranging from gastrointestinal distress and dizziness to liver failure and death. Outbreaks of poisoning here are most often reported in parts of Europe, especially in Scandinavia and Eastern Europe, where it's sometimes consumed as a traditional food after extensive boiling and drying. But despite the dangers, some cultures consider it a delicacy, though health authorities warn strongly against the consumption of it. The concentration of it varies by region, mushroom age, and even weather conditions, making safe consumption pretty unpredictable. Cooking reduces, but it doesn't eliminate the toxicity, and inhaling the vapors during preparation can also cause illness. From a biological perspective, though, its spores are elliptical and smooth, and it reproduces sexually via asci embedded in the folded tissues of the cap. Now, this fungus forms the mycorrhizal associations with conifers, especially pine trees, and it plays a role in forest nutrient cycles by helping trees absorb phosphorus in exchange for some carbon compounds. Number 8. The Veiled Lady Mushroom. Phallus indicyatus, commonly known as the Veiled Lady or bamboo mushroom, is one of the most visually elegant yet bizarre fungi on the planet. It belongs to the Stagghorn family, but it differs drastically from its relatives in form. While many Stagghorns are pretty grotesque or phallic in appearance, this one is known for its delicate white net-like skirt, which drapes from a central stalk, giving it an otherworldly appearance that seems more like a crafted ornament than a naturally occurring organism. The mushroom is native to tropical forests in Asia, Africa, South America, and parts of Australia, and it typically grows from nutrient-rich decomposing organic matter on the forest floor, appearing during periods of high humidity or after heavy rain. The fruiting body arises from an egg-like sac that bursts open to reveal a central stalk, topped with a spore-covered cap and surrounded by a lace-like structure called the indusium, which hangs down and may extend nearly to the ground. The indusium is not merely decorative, it is believed to play a role in the spore dispersal by increasing the surface area and potentially helping to direct insects to the cap, which is coated in sticky, foul-smelling gleba. Like other stinkhorns, though, it emits an odor of decay to attract the flies, and they feed on the gleba and inadvertently carry spores to new locations. The mushroom's peculiar form has led to a range of interpretations across cultures. In traditional Chinese medicine, it's been used for centuries for its supposed anti-inflammatory and immune-boosting properties. In parts of Asia, it also is considered a delicacy, especially in China and Vietnam, where it's sold dried in markets and used in soups. It is one of the few stinkhorn species that's not only non-toxic, but widely consumed. Nutritionally, it contains amino acids, polysaccharides, and antioxidants, and it's attracted some attention for its potential pharmacological applications. And some researchers have suggested that it may possess anti-tumor, antimicrobial, and immunoregulatory properties, although more studies are needed to confirm these effects in humans. Taxonomically, it's like other stinkhorns. It's part of the order Phallaceae, and its spores produce on the slimy cap, not beneath the indusium. But once flies or other insects land on the cap to investigate that odor, they pick up the sticky spores and help distribute them. But what makes it so visually alien is the combination of the structures rarely seen in fungi. That gleaming white lattice of the indusium, which remains intact only for a few hours before disintegrating, gives the mushroom an appearance closer to lacework or coral than anything terrestrial. It's been featured in photography books and nature documentaries for its otherworldly beauty, and in some regions it is considered a symbol of purity or spiritual transformation. At the same time, though, its underlying reproductive strategy, using carrion scent to lure flies, reminds us of its place in the strange and efficient kingdom of fungi. Moving on to number 7, the black velvet fan fungus. Panis leucomtai is a striking and mysterious wood-decaying fungus that looks more like a prop from a dark fantasy film than a naturally occurring organism. Commonly referred to as the black velvet fan fungus. This species is native to Southeast Asia and parts of India. It's often found on decaying logs in moist tropical forests. With that deep, almost black surface and intricate fan-like gills that radiate outward like a sea creature, it presents an appearance that seems both synthetic and otherworldly. This fungus produces fruiting bodies that are typically 5 to 10 centimeters across, although larger specimens can be found. The cap is funnel-shaped or fan-like, often with irregular edges that curl or undulate. Its upper surface is covered in dense, fine hairs that give it a velvety texture and a color ranging from deep purple to brown or black. The underside reveals tightly spaced gills that start pale and darken with age, spreading outward in a delicate radial pattern that resembles coral or the ridges of an alien mollusk. But despite the macabre appearance, it plays a beneficial ecological role. It's what's known as a saprotrophic fungus. That means it feeds on dead wood and contributes to the decomposition of organic material in forest ecosystems. And by breaking down lignin and cellulose, it helps recycle nutrients back into the soil. Taxonomically, though, it shares similarities in form with oyster mushrooms and other fan-shaped fungi. Its unique surface texture and coloration set it apart from common shelf fungi. The dark pigment may provide protection against UV light and drying out, allowing it to thrive in exposed areas of tropical forests where intense humidity alternate with strong sun. Depending on the amount of moisture in the environment and the condition of the substrate, the fungus may present dramatically different shapes and shades. Some caps appear flattened and wide, like satellite dishes, while others are more cupped or rosette-like structures. The colors, too, shift subtly depending on the age of the fruiting body and exposure to light, sometimes appearing charcoal black, other times revealing deep violet or reddish-brown hues when backlit. In the field, it's often mistaken for other fungi in the same genus, but close examination reveals its unique velvety cap surface and fan-like architecture. The species is not known to be toxic, but it's also not considered edible due to its leathery texture and lack of flavor. In traditional practices, it has no widespread medicinal or culinary use, but it is occasionally documented in ethnomycological records for its decorative appearance and its resilience on wood surfaces. From a visual standpoint, though, it challenges the ordinary definition of a mushroom. That fan-like spread, dark plush surface, and symmetry are unlike most terrestrial organisms. In certain lighting, it does resemble the gill plate of a deep-sea creature, or maybe the solar array of a robotic probe. Well, clearly organic, yet somehow engineered in appearance. Number 6. The small staghorn fungus. Calocera cornea, also known as the small stag's horn, is a simple but visually bizarre fungus that grows on decaying hardwood, and it kind of looks like a miniature yellow tentacle or coral antlers emerging from the bark. It is a jelly fungus, meaning its texture is rubbery or gelatinous, and it's bright yellow to orange in coloring. Combined with the shape, it gives an unmistakable alien quality. Found throughout Europe, North America, Asia, and parts of Oceania. It's common, yet consistently striking when encountered in the field. The fruiting bodies of it typically grow in tight clusters of upright, narrow, finger-like projections of only about 1 to 4 centimeters tall. Those projections taper to blunt tips and can occasionally fork off, giving the appearance of tiny deer antlers or sea anemone fronds. Their bright coloration stands out sharply against dark browns and greens of forest wood, making them really photogenic and immediately noticeable on mossy logs or damp stumps. Unlike most mushrooms, though, it lacks gills, pores, or teeth. It produces spores on the smooth surface of its fruiting body. That's a feature common to jelly fungi. And under the microscope, the spores are long and curved, and they contain oily, refractive contents that help retain moisture, contributing to that jelly-like appearance. Its role is that of a wood decomposer and specializes in the breakdown of lignin in hardwoods. The species is most active in moist conditions, particularly during the autumn months, and it's one of the first fungi to colonize fallen branches and cut wood. Despite its small size, though, it does play a critical role in nutrient cycling and is considered an early colonizer in forest regeneration. When touched, though, the fungus is flexible and it bounces back into shape. That's a feature that distinguishes it from many brittle or leathery wood-decaying fungi. That alien appearance, though, comes not only from the color and the shape, but from its behavior in light. The fungus's moisture-retentive tissues make it appear to glow under diffuse lighting, especially after rain. In foggy conditions or low-angle sun, those tentacle-like structures catch the light in a way that makes them seem artificially colored, or even bioluminescent, though they aren't. Though not known to be toxic, it's not edible due to its size, texture, and just lack of flavor. Its primary interest is ecological and aesthetic. Nature photographers often seek it out for macro shots, and it features prominently in mushroom field guides due to that ease of identification and that memorable look. Number 5. The Scaly Inkcap. Loratiomyces squamosus, Commonly known as the Scaly Inkcap, which is way easier to say, is a bizarre and otherworldly fungus with a form and texture that seems to be more suited to the surface of a moon than to a patch of bark or mulch. This saprobic mushroom is found in temperate regions across the globe. It's known for its cracked, scale-covered cap and dark, inky gills, and it often appears in urban environments, lending a touch of the surreal to everyday parks and backyards. It's commonly found in wood chips, mulch beds, lawns, and disturbed soils, especially in damp, shaded conditions. Though small in size, the caps typically measure about 3 to 8 centimeters. It's got a distinct alien-like visual character that does set it apart from most common mushrooms. The most notable feature is that scaly, cracked cap, which starts out rounded and expands into a flat disc as it matures. The surface is covered in fibrous brown scales that look like dried bark or reptilian skin, maybe layered over pale beige or gray flesh. This cracked appearance gives the cap a mosaic-like texture that appears unnatural, almost digital. And as the mushroom ages, the gills, initially pale, they turn a deep purple brown to almost black, a transformation associated with the spore development. Eventually, like other members of its order, the gills liquefy through a process known as deliquescence, turning into an inky black fluid that drips down the stem and collects at the base. This dark, viscous substance adds to the mushroom's alien aesthetic, and it's part of the spore dispersal strategy. The stalk, or stipe, is typically whitish with fibrous streaks, and it may exhibit remnants of a ring or a veil from its early development, and it usually grows to a height of about 5 to 12 centimeters and supports the wide-spreading cap, like the armature of a strange fungal satellite dish. Though visually unsettling, it's known to be non-toxic. However, it's not considered edible either, due to its tendency to deliquesce and the unappealing texture and taste that accompanies that process. It's often confused with other inky caps or urban wood chip fungi, though its heavily scaled cap does set it apart upon closer inspection. It feeds on dead organic matter, and that contributes to nutrient recycling in landscaped or human-modified environments, and its tendency to colonize bark mulch in garden beds makes it a common, if unintentional, resident of suburban green spaces. From a visual and textural standpoint, though, it doesn't resemble the smooth, cartoonish mushrooms that many people expect. Instead, it looks decayed, mechanical, and active, like something in mid-transformation, maybe post-organic. And this impression makes it a favorite subject for macrophotography and fungal art, especially among those drawn to the eerie and obscure corners of natural design. Number 4. Turkey tail fungus. Trametes versicolor, better known as the turkey tail fungus, is one of the most common and widely distributed fungi on Earth. Yet its intricate form and rainbow-like coloration give it an appearance more reminiscent of alien architecture than of anything typically found on tree bark. With its thin, overlapping bands and velvety texture, this fungus grows in layered colonies that resemble a cluster of coral fans or geological strata more than anything terrestrial. Usually found on decaying hardwood logs and stumps across North and South America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. It's what's known as a saprotrophic polyphore fungus. That means it feeds on dead wood and produces pores rather than gills on the underside of its fruiting body. Now, what makes it so remarkable is that zoned, multicolored surface. Each rosette or bracket displays rings of color ranging from browns, grays, and whites to deep blues, purples, greens, and even oranges. These concentric bands form as the fungus matures and grows outward from a central point, much like the rings in a tree, and the coloration varies depending on the environmental factors. The surface of it is thin, flexible, and slightly fuzzy due to fine hairs that cover the upper side, and the texture and color transition give it a synthetic, almost digitally layered appearance. The underside of the fruiting body contains hundreds of tiny pores that release spores into the air, contributing to the species' incredible range and abundance. But despite that common name, turkey tail, there's nothing poultry-related about this fungus. That nickname comes from the fan-shaped fruiting bodies that resemble the spread tail feathers of a wild turkey. But the resemblance ends there. The actual organism is a mycelial network that permeates the substrate it's feeding on, typically hardwood logs, and sends up the colorful rosettes as fruiting bodies. So beyond the appearance, though, it is one of the most medicinally studied fungi in the world. It's traditional in Chinese medicine, and it's known as yunzi, and in Japan, it forms the basis of the anti-cancer drug polysaccharide crestin. This compound has been used as an adjunct therapy in cancer treatment and has shown immunomodulatory properties in both clinical and laboratory studies. It contains something called beta-glucans and other complex polysaccharides that stimulate immune cells and improve resistance to pathogens. The fungus is non-toxic and occasionally consumed in tea, tinctures, or powdered supplements. However, it is too tough and woody for a standard culinary use, and it's usually prepared through decoction or extraction to isolate the active compounds. But from a structural point of view, the growth of it is also pretty striking. It grows in overlapping layers that cover logs like shingles or scales, and in humid environments these layers can trap moisture and reflect light in subtle iridescent hues. And that adds to the impression that this thing is a living mineral or an alien outgrowth, rather than a simple woodland fungus. Number 3. The Devil's Fingers. Among the world's most visually unsettling fungi is Clathrus archeri, more commonly known as the Devil's Fingers or the octopus Stagghorn. It's native to Tasmania and southern Australia, but now it's found in Europe and North America. This fungus appears so bizarre upon emerging from the ground that it's frequently mistaken for an animal part or even a prop from science fiction. Its vivid red finger-like tentacles and foul smell contribute to that appearance and its role as a decomposer in woodland ecosystems. Now, its life cycle begins as a small egg-like structure, often mistaken for a puffball or an immature mushroom. When conditions are right, typically moist soil and mild temperatures, the egg ruptures and releases 4 to 8 elongated, fleshy red arms that rapidly unfold and stretch upwards, sometimes reaching lengths of 10 to 15 centimeters. These tentacle-like structures are covered in a sticky brownish-black spore mass called gleba, which emits a strong odor of rotting flesh. Now, that odor is not accidental. Like other stinkhorns, it's evolved to attract flies and other scavenger insects as its primary method of spore dispersal. The insects are drawn to the smell, and when they land on the gleba to feed or investigate, and they unknowingly pick up fungal spores on their legs and bodies. When they fly off, they distribute the spores to new locations, enabling the fungus to colonize additional decomposing wood or leaf litter. Now, the coloration of the tentacles does enhance that illusion of decaying meat. The bright red or crimson coloring mimics raw muscle tissue, which combined with the odor increases its effectiveness in attracting carrion-associated insects. Although it might resemble something hazardous or toxic, it's not poisonous to humans. However, it's not typically consumed due to the foul smell and the bitter taste. Some early reports from its native regions note that indigenous Australians do recognize the fungus but didn't use it for food. Its spread beyond Australia, though, is believed to be accidental, likely through contaminated soil or plant materials. It was first documented in Europe in the early 1900s, particularly in France, and it's since been observed in various parts of the UK, Germany, and even the United States. Its successful colonization is partly due to its adaptability. It can grow in a range of temperate environments and uses decaying organic matter as its primary food source. This species is an example of convergent evolution in fungal design. Multiple unrelated fungal lineages have developed these spore dispersal strategies involving smell and insects rather than wind or water. In ecosystems, it does play a beneficial role by breaking down dead plant material and accelerates nutrient recycling in forests. That ability to decompose wood and leaf matter does contribute to the overall health of the soil microbiome. But despite the grotesque appearance, this fungus is a marvel of biological engineering. Its strategy for reproduction, based on scent mimicry and visual deception, highlights how evolution can create forms that seem alien to the human eye but are perfectly suited to their ecological niche. Whether it's emerging from the forest floor or photographed in high detail, the Devil's Fingers remains one of the Earth's most alien-looking and biologically fascinating fungi. Number 2. The Red Cage Fungus. Clathrus ruber, commonly known as the red cage fungus, is one of the most visually stunning fungi ever discovered, a species that looks less like a mushroom and more like an alien device. The lattice-like structure, intense coloration, and unusual method of spore dispersal all contribute to a fungus so strange in appearance that many people encountering it in the wild assume it's fake or manufactured. Native to southern and central Europe, Clathrus ruber has also spread to parts of North America, Australia, and New Zealand, particularly in warm, moist environments. The fungus begins its life as a pale, rubbery egg of sorts, roughly the size of a golf ball. This soft casing hides the fully formed but compressed fruiting body inside. Once mature, the egg ruptures rapidly, and the fungus expands into a bright red or orange spherical cage, sometimes up to 20 centimeters in diameter. The cage consists of interconnected spongy arms arranged in a geometric mesh that resembles a 3D puzzle or the outer hull of an alien satellite. The inside surfaces of the cage are coated with gleba, that's the foul-smelling brownish slime. And like other stinkhorns, it relies on insects, particularly flies, to disperse the spores. Despite the grotesque color, though, and the decaying matter mimicry, it's not toxic to humans. It is, however, inedible due to the slimy texture and overpowering smell. Even in the egg state, when some stinkhorn species are considered edible in certain cultures, this one's avoided due to its off-putting chemical profile. But one really cool aspect is how quickly it expands. In optimal conditions, the transition from egg to full cage can happen in a matter of hours. This rapid growth is driven by osmotic pressure changes within the fungal cells. They absorb water and swell dramatically, basically. Because the structure is already preformed inside the egg, the expansion is more about unfolding than really building it, making it one of the fastest fruiting body transformations in the fungal kingdom. The fungus prefers nutrient-rich soil and decaying plant matter, commonly appearing in gardens, mulched flower beds, or disturbed woodlands. The outer structure of that sponge-like texture does help trap moisture, and it keeps the gleba hydrated and aromatic during its brief period of spore dispersal. The species has been occasionally mistaken for synthetic material. In fact, there have been multiple documented cases of people reporting alien eggs or biohazard growths to the authorities, only to learn that they had found this fungi emerging from their mulch pile. When photographed in the field, though, it's often casting a strange shadow and glow with eerie luminescence when wet, and that further enhances that alien look. In every way, Clathris ruber defies expectations. It's bright, geometric, fast-growing, foul-smelling, and ephemeral. It lasts only for a few days before collapsing into an unrecognizable mass. And it's a living sculpture built for reproduction, using visual and chemical cues so unusual they often seem designed rather than evolved. On any list of Earth's most alien organisms, the red cage fungi holds a firm position near the top. Number 1. The Amethyst Deceiver. Okay, so among the Earth's most alien-looking fungi is Lacaria amethystina. It's commonly known as the Amethyst Deceiver, a name that reflects both that vivid purple color and its unusual ability to fade and blend into its surroundings. While it lacks the grotesque form of stinkhorns or the geometric oddity of cage fungi, its deep metallic purple hue and waxy, semi-translucent structure make it seem like a biological anomaly, more like a coral reef organism. It's native to deciduous and coniferous forests throughout Europe, Asia, and North America. The Amethyst Deceiver thrives in leaf litter and mossy soil, particularly in areas rich in beech, oak, or pine. Now, it is a mycorrhizal species, meaning it forms symbiotic relationships with the roots of trees, exchanging nutrients and playing a vital role in forest health. But what sets it apart visually is that vivid purple coloration. When fresh and hydrated, the entire mushroom, including the cap, gills, and stem, shines with a deep amethyst hue that appears almost synthetic. Under moist, shaded conditions, the color intensifies to the point of resembling dyed fabric or colored plastic. But over time, especially during the dry periods, the pigment fades dramatically, turning pale lilac, gray, or even tan, hence the name Deceiver, as it can easily be mistaken for less distinctive species. The cap is convex when young, typically about 2 to 6 centimeters across, but it flattens out as it matures, sometimes becoming slightly depressed in the center. The gills underneath the cap are widely spaced, straight, and they exhibit the same purplish color as the cap, though they may lighten with age. The stem is slender, fibrous, and often somewhat twisted, ranging from about 5 to 10 centimeters tall. Under the microscope, it reveals another layer of strangeness. It produces large, ornamented spores with spiny surfaces, unlike the smooth spores of most common fungi. These spores are released from the gills and dispersed by air currents, allowing the fungus to colonize. Though it appears exotic, the Amethyst Deceiver is non-toxic and it's even considered edible in some regions. However, it is rarely collected for food due to the small size, the variable color, and the risk of confusion with less safe species. Its alien-like qualities are most apparent in the right lighting, though. The damp undergrowth of a forest, especially during the overcast weather, is when the mushroom glows subtly against the brown and green backdrop, as if it's almost bioluminescent. The waxy cap reflects light in a way that makes it seem alive or even mechanical. Because it accumulates trace elements and heavy metals from the soil, it is sometimes used in biomonitoring to assess pollution levels in forest ecosystems, and researchers have found that the mushroom can tolerate elevated levels of metals like cadmium and zinc, and they offer insights into fungal resilience and soil chemistry. Its widespread presence and dramatic appearance have earned it a place in numerous field guides, children's books, and even speculative discussions about alien ecosystems. Despite being entirely natural and Earth-based though, it challenges our assumptions about what fungi can look like.